Hey there, all you listeners. Welcome to the 402, where you can get a little bit of info about Omaha, its culture, and its communities. Take a sec to chill while we give you the 401 here. Hey guys, gals, non-binary pals. Welcome to the first episode of the 402 with your host, Lewis.
As well as Faro.
And welcome to our podcast. For the first episode, we'll be talking about toxic masculinity and body standards within the LGBTQ community, as well as just, everyone's lives in general. Okay, so queer people are often stereotyped for being too feminine. Even in and out of the community, we're still seen as too feminine. And I'm just thinking, what exactly is too feminine for people?
Well, I feel like we should start off by talking about where toxic masculinity kind of stems from, and its effects found in all major cultures, Latin culture, machismo, Asian culture as well, American culture, Eastern, Western, even within the state of Islam, in the Muslim community, that toxic masculinity is found. So it doesn't reflect the actual community itself, but it is there. So I feel like in all walks of life, we can all empathize with having a toxic masculine figure, or having gone through even abusive tendencies of toxic masculinity. So when we're talking about toxic masculinity, I want to clear the fact that we're not talking about just masculinity in general. The masculine energy is very important, very crucial, and a wonderful thing for anybody. And masculine energy is found within not just men, but females as well, and people of non-binary representation. So when we're talking about toxic masculinity, it's the point in which masculinity becomes overbearing and destructive for the individual or the individual's community and people around them. So an example of toxic masculinity would be belittling others based on their sexual preference or the way that they portray themselves, maybe being quote-unquote too feminine, like you were talking about earlier. Or toxic masculinity, can usually lead to physical confrontations as well as emotional confrontations, physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, even spiritual abuse.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what Candace Owens posted, I want to say a month ago from here, about bringing back manly men when Harry Styles posted a picture of himself in a dress? And I'm just thinking, what do you mean bring back manly men? It's not really a need for survival. Masculinity is something that's higher up in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What is masculinity at that point? What is a female supposed to do in a survivalist situation? It's not defined by masculinity or femininity. It's just a mean of survival. And we are way beyond that point where we need the idea of manly men. We are so far in advance in technology and when it comes to social development, economic development,
cultural development.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just thinking, where does that statement stem from?
Definitely coming from a source of ignorance. I think that what she was pertaining to maybe was something that obviously she's dealing with or lacks in dealing with in her personal life. I have heard similar remarks from multiple people, with the whole man bun movement, men painting their nails, wearing makeup, etc. Which, if we look at historically men have been doing this for thousands of years. It's just more common now, and now that we have the access to internet and the exposure, culture in general, something can happen in China or Japan, and in 20 seconds we know about it over here. Something can happen here, vice versa, and they know about it in Germany in a matter of minutes. So with the plethora of communication, we're starting to see that people are more comfortable with expressing themselves, which is not a bad thing at all. I think that self-expression is very important in us defining who we are. You feeling comfortable in your own skin is part of you self-loving yourself, self-affirming yourself, and ties into who you are as an individual. So going back to what you said about her quote or that situation or her remark, I think that we need to move away from this image of what a man is, what a woman is, and just focus on what a healthy, functioning adult is. I have seen a lot more masculine tendencies within women, but I mean, coming from a single mother household myself, my mom was my mom and my dad is my mom and my dad, and she herself has had masculine tendencies, but still has had feminine tendencies, and in no way did that deprive me of a childhood. Has not made me anything less, but if anything, a more understanding and a more adaptive individual, to what we deal with in society. So I think in a sense, she herself was practicing toxic masculinity in her remark. What do you think?
I feel like she doesn't understand the need of feminine energy within both men and women.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to be a healthy human being, you got to know how to express yourself. Like, again, back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those last two tiers is self-esteem and self-actualization.
Yep.
To reach that means you are thriving in society, and many of us are at that point where we are thriving.
I do see a lot more progress than detriment in our current times. I know with the COVID pandemic, I know with Trump's failure as a president, and a lot of other things that are going on, people tend to focus on the negative. But if you look at the positive, our feats in growth as a civilization in general is astounding. Even things with, so that as a whole we're growing and we're flourishing, and the reason being is because people are starting to wake up. We've known these injustices have been going on for so long, but now we're actually talking about them.
How do we want to bring this up to people who are struggling with toxic masculinity, like people who are experiencing it or surrounded by it, and trying to help people who are stuck in that machismo culture, that toxic masculinity culture, just to help them realize that they need to express themselves fully and indulge themselves in some of that feminine energy, because feminine energy, it's tied a lot with our emotions, our inner self, the part that men are told not to express.
I agree. The nurturing aspect, as opposed to just nature, or the bare necessities of existence, so
it's gonna create a lot of long-term damage emotionally and psychologically, and you're probably going to end up hurting others as well in the process if you are just continuing to bottle it up.
To answer your question, I think the first step to handling toxic masculinity is addressing that yes, there is an issue, accepting the fact that it's not okay, and realizing that there is an alternative and there is a better lifestyle, a better environment that you can expose yourself, your loved ones, and your surroundings to. Because if we refuse to accept the fact that it's inappropriate behavior, it's a substandard form of living, if you would. So in a sense, it's almost like living in an emotional third world state of being. And it's a big step to accept and realize that it's not okay, and then ask yourself, what am I going to do to make this better? The first step after realizing and accepting it is removing yourself from that situation to the best of your ability. Sometimes we live with these individuals, so in your household, it's obviously hard. Let's say you have a father figure or a brother or somebody that is practicing toxic masculinity. So whenever that behavior is expressed in your environment, removing yourself from that, not engaging in it, not acknowledging it, and then finding somebody in which you can counsel with and let them know that it's going on. Let them know how it affects you, and being very patient with yourself and very open as to how it affects you. Validate your feelings. What you're feeling does matter. You're not overreacting. If something hurts you, it hurts you for a reason. If you feel emotional or strongly towards something, it's for a reason. Don't doubt yourself, and be in touch with your emotions, what you're feeling. Be more intuitive as to what's going on internally. What you're feeling is felt for a reason.
In 2012, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in California rules 2-1 that Proposition 8 is unconstitutional because it violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. In the ruling, the court said the law operates with no apparent purpose but to impose on gays and lesbians, through the public law, a majority's private disapproval of them and their religion. For our next topic, we're going to talk about body standards. And okay, ladies, I know you feel this a lot, especially with the pressures of beauty standards, especially with how men try to push it onto you. But men struggle a lot with it too. The only thing that I find different between that insecurity is that some men don't know how to express that struggle or feel pressure that they are not allowed to communicate their feelings of insecurity. So we see a lot of advertising. Men are supposed to be like this broader, buff sort of figure. And then we go into the LGBTQ community, and we see a lot of labels put onto men of different builds. Like myself, I'm considered a twink due to just how tiny I am for, a man my age. And honestly, I feel super insecure. People around me, the media, even my own mom, look at me and just is that it? And think, okay, you should probably bulk up some more, probably work out some more, do more. And it's I can't, I'm just the way I am, stuck at around 120. And I don't know how I'm supposed to just deal with it aside from just I'm me, considering literally almost everyone and everything around me is pushing that standard of having that ideal build up look of a man.
I definitely agree. It's a more sensitive, vulnerable topic, so I want to give you a certain amount of gratitude and respect for being able to bring that subject forward in our podcast and over our next conversations through our different segments and seminars. I want to have a open space and a safe space for consciousness and for everyone to flourish in general. I personally am typically identified as a twink, twonk, and hunk, if you would. So I definitely know where you're coming from.
Don't you feel over-sexualized sometimes?
Definitely, especially with males, even males that identify as heterosexual. I'll definitely get a lot of sexualized looks, remarks, questions even, which maybe to them seems more complimentary, but it definitely comes off as sexualized or almost inappropriate.
Fetishized, and it's pretty demeaning.
So, I feel like a big personal experience with myself would be probably my butt. I know that sounds but I've gotten a lot of feedback, I guess, not always positive with me having like a bigger butt or legs in general. And although those compliments can be affirming from people that you are comfortable with or people that you're attracted to, it can also come off in the wrong way when it comes from somebody that you're not necessarily attracted to or see that way or want you to see that way. I would recommend establishing boundaries early on in a relationship or any bond with anybody that you're communicating with, and also be one to respect boundaries that other people set, as silly as they may be. So circling all together, just being very comfortable in your environment is key. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, that's usually your intuition or maybe a subconscious red flag as to the environment that you're in. Knowing your triggers, other people's triggers as well, is a big thing.
Well said, Carlos, about the matter of just understanding boundaries and communicating with one another about those said boundaries. And I want to just close off this podcast by just mentioning, my personal experience. Because with my petite build and stature, I often get misgendered. And it's not too surprising. It's a little insulting, I understand, but I'm just feel not emasculated. I take it as a compliment. I've had other women compliment me on my outfits, my build, my style. And I take advantage of those positive comments. I don't try to let those negative comments demean me. What I'm just trying to say is appreciate the body that you have, because it's yours. You get to do what you want with it. You're beautiful in your own right. Yeah, if you want to work on your body, I understand. We all want to make improvements, but it's still your body. Appreciate it and love it for who you are and what you are, no matter what. That's it for this episode of the 402. What you think? It's just a small facet of Omaha, with so much more to cover. Until next time, make some noise for our communities.